Alright, fellow gearheads, welcome back. Today we're getting into brakes. Yes, the things that keep you from kissing bumpers on the freeway, or sending yourself flying off the track. Upgrading brakes isn't about picking the fanciest parts. It's about choosing what actually works for how you drive. So we'll break down pads, rotors, calipers, and more. I'll even let you in on what I'm running on my Volvo and why. Let's make sure your stopping power matches your go power. Ready? Let's go. Alright, let's start with brake pads. The part of your brakes that's literally doing all the heavy lifting. Not all brake pads are created equal though, so let's break down the main types and figure out which ones are actually worth your time. First up, ceramic pads. These are the pads you get if you want quiet, clean, and long-lasting brakes. They're like the tidy, dependable friend who always shows up on time. Ceramic pads run cooler, produce less dust, and last longer. Perfect if your idea of excitement is avoiding traffic. But put them on the track, and you'll feel them wave the white flag real quick. Now, if you're actually planning to do something ambitious, like, I don't know, drive fast, semi-metallic pads are your new best friend. They're designed to handle high heat, which means they can take a beating on the track without flinching. The catch? They're noisy, dusty, and wear out faster than ceramics. So unless you love that loud brake squeal, maybe don't put these on your daily driver. And then we've got the jack-of-all-trades option. High-performance street pads. These sit right in the middle. They handle heat better than ceramics, but aren't as high maintenance as full-blown track pads. I run PowerStop Z23 Evolution Sport pads on my Volvo, and honestly, they're the perfect match for anyone who wants to keep things fun on the road without rebuilding the brakes every other month. Look, it's simple.
Kill the Batman.
Daily drivers, go with ceramic pads. Track enthusiasts, get yourself some semi-metallic pads and enjoy all that grip. And if you're like me and want the best of both worlds, high-performance street pads have got you covered. Just remember, the right pad depends on how you drive, so choose wisely. Alright, let's talk rotors. They're not just hunks of metal that your brakes squeeze on. They're the difference between stopping gracefully or looking like a wannabe drift king every time you hit the brakes. Rotors keep your brakes cool, consistent, and yes, they do a little flexing on everyone else with their fancy designs. First, let's look at drilled rotors. These are the ones with holes in them. Yes, actual holes drilled into your brake rotor. Now, before you ask, they're not for show, even if they look like they're trying to win a beauty contest. Drilled rotors allow heat and gas to escape, which sounds nice. But here's the catch. Under heavy pressure, those little holes become stress points, meaning if you push them too hard on the track, they might just crack on you. So, for everyday use or showing off? Sure, they're perfect. For hardcore track days? Maybe keep browsing. Next up, slotted rotors. These have these aggressive looking lines, or slots, on the surface, and they're a bit more serious. Those slots sweep away gas, dust, and debris, so your brakes have a clean surface to bite onto. Think of them as the no-nonsense option. Built for performance, not just looks. They don't crack under pressure like drilled rotors, so they're a solid choice if you're actually planning to push your car, not just flex on Instagram. Plus, slotted rotors keep the braking surface nice and clean, which means you get better grip every time you hit the brakes. So, if you're the I actually track my car type, these are your guys. And finally, we've got vented rotors. These have a little air pocket, an internal cooling chamber running through the middle. Think of it like an AC unit for your brakes. Vented rotors move a lot more air, so they cool down faster and handle heat way better than your average chunk of metal. So, here's where I stand. I run PowerStop drilled and slotted rotors on my Volvo. They look amazing behind the wheels. Yes, I like a little bit of flex too, but they also handle heat like a pro. Perfect for someone who enjoys spirited driving without pushing things to the track day extreme. In short, if you're all about performance, slotted or vented rotors are where it's at. But if you're just looking to add a little style, drilled rotors are cool too. Just know what you're getting into. Pick the wrong rotors for the wrong purpose, and you might end up with a very, very expensive brake job. Alright, now let's talk about calipers. The muscle behind your braking system. If you're rolling with stock calipers, you've probably got the single piston variety. They're like that reliable friend who always shows up but never really wows anyone. And hey, for getting from point A to point B, they do the job just fine. Single piston calipers work by pushing the brake pad onto the rotor with one big simple piston. It's basic, it's reliable, but let's be real. It's about as exciting as watching paint dry. You're not getting that even pressure across the pad. which means things can get a little unrefined if you push them hard. Enter the multi-piston calipers, the gym rats of the brake world. These guys come in with 2, 4, 6 pistons or more, and they don't mess around. More pistons mean the pressure gets spread out nice and evenly across the brake pad, so you get smoother, stronger braking. Imagine not feeling like you're stomping on a watermelon every time you hit the brakes. That's the magic of multi-piston calipers. Now, you might be wondering, do I really need all these pistons just to hit the brakes? Well, if you're doing the school run, probably not. But if you're hitting the track or driving like you're auditioning for a Fast and Furious reboot, multi-piston calipers are a game changer. They keep you in control when you're braking hard and help prevent that dreaded brake fade. Here's the thing though, these beefy multi-piston setups add weight, complexity, and let's not forget, cost. So if you're upgrading, you'd better be ready to invest and make sure they're compatible with the rest of your braking system. Otherwise, you're just turning your car into an awkward science experiment. Another thing to keep in mind, balance. If you throw a 6-piston caliper on the front, but keep a single piston caliper on the back, you'll end up with what we call brake bias issues. Or, in other words, a setup that'll feel like a bad roller coaster ride every time you brake. Make sure both ends of the car can work together, otherwise you're just asking for a headache. So, to wrap it up on calipers, single piston is fine for the daily grind, but if you're after smoother, stronger, and honestly more satisfying braking, multi-pistons are where it's at. Just know it's an investment that requires a little finesse with the rest of your setup. Alright, now let's talk brake lines and the master cylinder. 2 things most people ignore until their brake pedal feels like stepping on a sponge. Let's break down why these upgrades matter. First up, brake lines. Most cars roll off the factory floor with rubber brake lines. Soft, flexible, and cheap to make. But here's the issue. When you stomp on the brakes, rubber lines flex and expand, which means some of that brake pressure is going into stretching the line instead of, actually stopping your car. That's why your brake pedal can feel a bit mushy under heavy braking. Enter stainless steel brake lines, the no-flex zone of brake lines. These babies don't stretch, so all that brake pressure goes straight to the calipers, not into turning your brake pedal into a stress ball. What you get is a firmer, more consistent pedal feel, especially when things heat up. Plus, they look kinda cool under the car, even if no one's gonna see them. But hey, it's about peace of mind, right? Just a heads up. Stainless steel lines won't give you more braking power. They just make the brakes feel sharper and more responsive. And yeah, if you've got a daily driver, you might not notice a night and day difference. But for those of us who demand a little more precision, they're worth every penny. Alright, now for the master cylinder, the thing that's probably making your brake pedal feel like mashed potatoes. So here's how it works. The master cylinder moves brake fluid to the calipers. When it's too small or worn out, you get that long, soft pedal feel that's about as satisfying as a soggy sandwich. If you're looking for a firmer brake pedal, upgrading to a larger master cylinder can make a huge difference. Bigger cylinder, more brake fluid moves faster, meaning sharper, quicker stops. It's not going to transform your brakes into track monsters, but it's like upgrading from a fast food soda straw to a fire hose. More fluid, more response. Word of advice though, don't go slapping on a massive master cylinder without making sure the rest of your brake system can handle it. It's like trying to water your plants with a fire hydrant. Great in theory, but if your lines and calipers can't keep up, you're just asking for a mess. So, stainless steel lines, master cylinder upgrades, these are the low-key MVPs of a solid brake setup. Alright, we're at the final stretch, but this last bit is key to keeping your brakes from turning into a puddle of sadness under pressure. Let's talk brake fluid and cooling ducts. 2 things most people don't even think about until they're halfway through a turn, and their brakes feel like wet spaghetti. First up, brake fluid. It's not glamorous, but it's what stands between you and a mushy brake pedal when things heat up. High temperature brake fluid is like an energy drink for your brakes. It has a higher boiling point, meaning it won't turn into steam and leave you with that "I think my brakes are giving up on me" feeling when you're pushing the car hard. Here's the deal. Regular brake fluid can boil under intense heat, which turns it into vapor, which then gives you that spongy pedal feel. Because last I checked, vapor isn't great at stopping cars. High temp fluid keeps everything in check, especially if you're the kind of driver who likes to pretend every on-ramp is the start of a track day, aka me. And then we've got cooling ducts. These aren't just for looks, although hey, they do look cool. Brake cooling ducts are like little fans for your rotors, channeling airflow right where it's needed to keep your brakes from overheating. Because as much as we all love the smell of burning brakes, it's not exactly the peak of performance. Cooling ducts are the unsung heroes of the track. They help keep your brakes consistent lap after lap by pulling in air and directing it to your rotors. It's like giving your brakes a breath of fresh air just when they need it most. Plus, the setup is pretty straightforward. You just need to make sure the airflow is aimed correctly, so you don't end up with leaves and debris clogging up your brakes. That's a fast track to a very unplanned pit stop. So, here's the bottom line. High-temp brake fluid and cooling ducts aren't flashy upgrades, but they keep your brakes from letting you down when it matters. If you're serious about your stopping power, don't skip these two. Because as much fun as it is to go fast, stopping, well, that's kind of important too. And that, my friends, is the whole shebang on brake upgrades. What are you upgrading first? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing your plans, and who knows, maybe I'll steal an idea or two. And hey, if you found this helpful or just mildly entertaining, give it a like. And share it with a friend who's still out there on stock brakes. I mean, let's help them out, right?